All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On NHL podcast. And usually on Thursdays, we have our power rankings, but thanks to the All-Star weekend, a lot of teams having off, we're going to kind of semi-skip the rankings. We'll still talk about them and where teams kind of stand, maybe look ahead and where teams could go in relation to some news that was coming out. A lot of things going on around the NHL. Brad Marchand, Mark Stone, Martin St. Louis, a lot going on. I got a bum knee. Denker's got a bad back. Let's rock this.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host from Locked On Avalanche, Chris Maselli. Joining me, as always, Mixtape Adam Denker from Locked On Lightning. And yeah, typically we do power rankings on Thursdays, but we are going to, like I said in the opening, if you're watching on YouTube, semi-skip that just because of the All-Star break. Not much going on in movement for the NHL, but there's still a lot to talk about, obviously in relation to news going on around the league, and we will kind of relate that to how will that affect the teams in the power rankings going forward. So let's dive in because there's a lot to get to, and I think the first thing that needs to get brought up is whenever he gets into trouble, or if trouble finds him, as maybe some Boston fans want to say, we got to talk about it. And it's Brad Marchand once again mixing it up with this time Tristian Jarry of the Pittsburgh Penguins. And it was, I mean, you've probably seen it, kind of like a rabbit punch to Jarry, and then threw his stick up in his grill as he's kind of skating by him, and as the ref's trying to get him away from everybody. And minutes before we hit record, they came down with a 6-game suspension for him. We'll start with the incident. Did you think much of it? Did you think more of it because it was Marchand getting involved in stuff again, or what's your take on it?
I really didn't think much of it. I mean, we've seen Brad Marchand get into his fair share of just incidents trying to antagonize other players on opposing teams, but I think at least I am shocked by the length of the suspension. I think 6 games. I mean, really, and this goes back to really what's the measuring stick here for the league, and for me at least, it's Tom Wilson. I mean, if Tom Wilson could body slam someone to the ice and did he even get suspended, Chris? Well, I don't remember. That seemed like forever ago with how many games he got, or maybe he got a 1-game suspension. Anyway, I'm just
he didn't.
confused.
He got nothing.
Yeah. Okay. So he got nothing. So by that logic, does Brad Marchand deserve 6 games? Yeah, sure. Maybe some other people would think that maybe a little bit longer, but yeah, I'm just confused because like I said, I don't know what the measuring stick is. I don't know how you could make a reasoning for one action to be worse than another. I mean, we've seen him do other things probably just as bad as what we've seen other players do that have gotten less games. So were you at all surprised by the length of the suspension, or is
no? I think it's okay. I think I'm okay with it, and I don't. And I say that, not being a Brad Marchand fan for these exact reasons, but is what he did to the length of, knocking a guy out? No. I mean, he threw a punch that he shouldn't have thrown, but it wasn't like he was throwing a haymaker, like and just had Jarry like sprawled out and unconscious. It was a cheap shot. Jarry didn't see it coming, and that's Marchand's game. He's a cheap shot artist. So is that something that you should have a long suspension for? The only argument you can have to why it should be longer is not because of the act, because the act wasn't, like I said, it wasn't horrible where Jarry's, health was on the line. It's because he's always involved in this stuff.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why you would extend it longer, but there has to be a limit for that too. You can't just, because if you make it 10 games and then the next time he gets into trouble, when the next time he gets into trouble, it's not if, you're not going to, depending on what it is, you can't just extend, you can't keep extending it. You can't go 10, then the next one's 11, then the next one's 13. You have to kind of take, that he is a repeat offender, and he's going to be a repeat offender for the entirety of his career because he's just that kind of guy, and take what he did into account. It was cheap. It was, but it wasn't, like I said, where Jarry's health was really on. The punch really wasn't even that hard. You know what I mean? Like it was
Yeah.
a punch, but it wasn't like he had all his weight going into it. And then when you throw the stick up, that could have been more dangerous than the punch when the stick went up into his face. And then the stuff with Sidney Crosby preventing him from going to get a stick when Crosby's stick broke. That's just annoying Brad Marchand.
And
So
I think
yeah,
earlier in the game too, Jarry, I don't know if it was during warmups or between whistles, but he was trying to give a puck to a fan, and Marchand just came over and knocked the puck
right.
off his stick. So little antagonizing stuff, but no, you're absolutely right. I think and once again, I mean, why are we slapping the label repeat offender on it if next time he gets into trouble, it's really not going to be taken into account?
Well, and if you want me to get personal with my team, they came down hard on Nazem Kadri.
Yeah.
2 more games than they're giving out Marchand right now. But that was for a hit to the head. Whether or not Kadri intended to do it, I don't think it was as intentional as it turned out to be. But that guy's health came into play.
Yeah.
Jarry's really didn't. Jarry's is, like I said, just you're still not supposed to be throwing punches at anybody, or I should say, or at any goalie, especially when he's not even looking. That's just cheap, man.
Yeah.
But it's par for the course for Marchand. He's an idiot, and he
Yeah.
knows it. That's part of his game. Doing stuff like preventing Crosby going to get a stick, doing things like when Jarry's trying, like you said, when trying to throw a puck to a fan and interrupting that's his way of getting on your skin, and it works. It works for the other team. It works for fans who can't stand him, and he relishes in that role. He relishes it. He loves it. So 6 games, how will this affect them? Because the Bruins are, they have a playoff spot right now, and they're pretty comfortable in front of Detroit, I think, in the standings. But what are these 6 games?
They
They
got
are, go ahead. You have it in front of
Carolina. They got
you? All right.
Carolina, Ottawa, the Rangers, the Islanders, Ottawa again, and then your Avalanche. And so his first game back will be against Seattle.
That annoyed. Well, no, that's okay. That's okay. Because I was going to say the Avalanche game, that's when McKinnon got taken out when his nose was sideways, but it wasn't Marchand who did that. Because I was going to say there's going to be some retaliation coming, but that's for Taylor Hall. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 of those games are on the road in Ottawa, New York, Ottawa. When I say New York, I mean Rangers and Islanders, obviously. So, what do you think they go here in those 6 games that he's out?
I mean, they have 2 games within their division that are easily winnable games. As for the Islander game, I think that's a game that they should win regardless of who's on the ice. I mean, I think it's safe to say with the Islanders and the Senators that the Bruins could roll out a team of locked on NHL hosts out there and probably still win those games. As for Carolina, New York, and your Avalanche, those are going to be tough games, and those are going to be games that they definitely would have needed Marchand on the ice for. And unfortunately, his stupidity has landed him on the suspension list. So really, those are 3 wins. I think if they won 2 out of 3 plus those Islander and those Senators games, I think that they would have made some good headway in the standings. I don't know how close they would have gotten to the other teams in the Atlantic Division. I mean, you're not going to catch up to Toronto anytime soon. You're almost 10 points behind, but still, at this point in the season, you need to rack up as many points as you can. And really, when you lose one of your star players due to something especially like this, I'm sure there's players on the Bruins that are a little bit frustrated like that by this.
Yeah. I mean, you just looking at, the records of the teams in those 6 games. Yeah, you have to say it hurts them to not have Marchand for Carolina, the Rangers, and the Avalanche. Does it hurt them enough where they would struggle against the Senators twice and the Islanders? I don't know about that. I think they should still be comfortable against those teams, but he's always a factor. And
Yeah.
they would have had a shot against Carolina, the Rangers, and the Avalanche, and they still might. Anything's possible in a game of hockey, but those are 3 games that they clearly would want him in. So if they go 3-3 without him, I think that's okay. I think it's where they'd be all right with.
Yeah, I don't think that the next 6 games are going to be a catastrophic failure. I think if you grab at least 1 out of 3 from Carolina, New York, or Colorado, I think you're in pretty good shape heading into they have a little bit of a West Coast trip coming up to end the month as well as begin March. So, that's definitely a trip that they're going to need him on. So it kind of works out in a way. He's going to be a little bit more well rested for that West Coast trip. As we all know, East Coast teams have an issue going out west with the time difference and all that stuff. So,
All right.
It does work out.
All right. Well, that's Marchand. So let's hear from Bet Online, and then we'll get into Vegas and Mark Stone, because another kind of breaking news before we started recording. He is out with an upper body injury. What does that mean? On many levels. So let's hear from Bet Online, and it has you covered this season with more prop bets, odds, and lines than ever before, as football makes its way towards the big game and the Super Bowl right around the corner. BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. It's not just football. BetOnline has up-to-the-minute info on pro and college hoops, the NHL, boxing, UFC, along with live, real-time, updated, and current games. So don't wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers available for the 2022 seasons. It's where the game starts. That's betonline.net. So one of the things that I am watching like a hawk is how Vegas is going to twist themselves into knots to get Jack Eichel on the ice and that team cap compliant. That is going, if you're someone who enjoys that stuff, and I love it, about salary cap, shedding cap, trade deadlines, free agent signings, I love all that stuff. I genuinely don't know what Vegas is going to do to get Jack Eichel on the ice under the cap. They're going to have to make moves. It's indisputable. It's undeniable. But every time something happens with them, and 2 things have happened right after the All-Star break. Oh, and I don't have their roster in front of me. I can't remember. There was a player that Pete DeBoer said was injured. He had a broken bone in like his foot or something like that. So that was one thing. Let me see if I can bring up their roster real quick, and it'll jog my memory on who it was. And so he's out. I think it was Whitecloud. Yes, it was Zach Whitecloud.
Yeah, it was Whitecloud. Yeah.
All right. And now, like minutes before we're recording, you have Mark Stone, out with an upper body injury. And every time something happens injury-wise for Vegas right now, like in the game right now, you have to have in the back of your mind, is all of this, are these guys really injured? And I don't want to take injuries like lightly. If they're really injured, then they're injured. But how much of it is to get cap compliant so they have room for Eichel? I don't know. Maybe these guys are legit injured. But would it surprise me if they go on LTIR tomorrow? Not at all. Because I don't think Vegas really thought this thing through fully, if you ask me.
Having followed the Lightning for the last couple of years, I do know a thing or two about going through the loopholes of the salary cap. Now,
Yeah.
I think the smart thing to do, because you also got to remember it's not only Mark Stone that is injured right now, but you also got Alec Martinez as well,
Yes.
And then of course Whitecloud and Eichel when he eventually comes back. Now, if I were Vegas, and I know this is frowned upon by a lot of people, most recently with my Lightning, but everybody forgets about the Blackhawks a couple of years back. I say you just keep Eichel off the roster until the playoffs. I think that's the only way. Why rush him back? Maybe
Well,
have him play the last week or so of the regular season, and I just don't know. I don't know what because
um,
like you said, I don't think Vegas thought this through when they acquired Jack Eichel. The only way I could see them possibly getting under the cap where it would make sense they would have to give up a key player on this team, and I don't know how you could do that and without reservations of Jack Eichel possibly coming back and not being Jack Eichel.
right, man. Yes. And that's my other part of it. Is like everybody's just expecting him to just get out on the ice and be the Jack Eichel of old. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying he can't do that. And maybe that is like, to your question, maybe that is why they bring him out now, like on track, on time, because they have to get him into game shape and game mode for the playoffs. And oh yeah, the Pacific is tight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're not running away with this thing. So I think they want him back in there because if they do get the Jack Eichel that everybody knows, yeah, they're a dangerous team. But you have to give up stuff. And you're not giving up one guy. You're giving up multiple guys. And the guys that you're likely going to have to give up is your depth players. And how all about, guys on injured reserve until the playoffs come around. Like I know about a top line team because that's what the Avalanche were about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
They were Mikko Rantanen, Gabe Landeskog, and Nathan McKinnon, and that was it. And and they struggled. And over the years, they've addressed the depth, and now they're a solid team from top to bottom. Vegas is that right now. Are they going to be in another couple weeks when Jack Eichel comes out and they have to shed some of those guys? They might be a very top heavy team, and teams can deal with that. Teams can overcome that, a very good top line that they will have, maybe one of the best in the league, and deal with it for 30 seconds, 45 seconds on a shift, and then stick it to them for the rest of the shifts that are out there, the lines that are out there. I don't know. Like I don't for this year, it might be a little bit difficult for Vegas to really navigate this thing. But I think they just got excited that Eichel was available. They traded for him, and then like we'll figure it out. We'll deal with it later, and they will. But it will hurt their team going forward because they, according to our power rankings, they were hovering right around 10, dropping here and there, but really not dropping too far. Maybe not side of like 12. And I think a lot of people are just expecting them to just ascend once Eichel comes in, but I want to see it before I'm going to believe it.
Yeah, I agree. And it's a little strange how high the expectations people have for Eichel, all things considered. I mean, the videos that have surfaced online of him playing is even before he got the surgery, it was playing men's beer league. And then most recently, he's just casually skating on the ice. So it's unless Vegas is seeing things behind the scenes with Eichel that are really impressing them, and that's why there's a little bit of hype around it. I totally get it, but like we stated throughout the whole process of this, and the whole reason why there was so much controversy up in Buffalo is that something like this has never been done before with a hockey player. So you really don't know how his body is going to react, and
exactly.
For maybe some of our listeners that have never played hockey before, but guess what? You kind of need to learn. You kind of need to move your neck in a proficient way to play hockey.
Important.
Yeah, it's kind of
Yeah.
important. So and also him not being able to play at like a full game speed, you don't know if he's going to go out there, get a big hit, and then kind of
What
get the
happens
yips
after
for the
that?
rest of the season. Yeah,
Right. And guys aren't going to back off. You know what I mean? Guys are going to be like, yeah, Eichel's out there. Let's not take him out. I mean, if he's lined up for a hit, guys are going to hit him. So I don't know, man. Like it's something to watch. Absolutely everything. Like who Vegas keeps putting on LTIR, if anybody, or who just mysteriously starts getting injured. What Eichel looks like when they come back, when he comes back. This is going to be an interesting team to keep eyes on.
yeah,
So.
definitely expect a move, because if it's one thing that we have learned from Vegas is that they're not afraid to make big trades.
No. Yeah. I feel like Vegas is like the New England Patriots of hockey. It's like,
No, they're the
we'll
Rams.
take in.
They're the Los Angeles Rams. They'll just trade for it.
Well, I was just saying, like New England was just known as like, you're expendable. Like if we don't care, we'll just get rid of you. for the betterment of the team. But this is a little bit different because it's like, it's not for the betterment of the team. It's because we have a cap we're up against. So keep eyes on this, people, because this is going to be exciting. All right. Let us hear from Rock Auto and then the Montreal Canadiens with a hire. The team that's been bottom feeding from our power rankings for majority of the season. Does this do anything to move the needle? Let's hear from not Bet Online, Rock Auto. And with the ever-increasing number of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts that you need. So why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand that their warehouse happens to carry, where you have a computer with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. It is a family-run business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. The Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer, and they have everything that you could need, from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. So go explore their easy-to-use website today and find the solution to your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in the How Did You Hear About Us section, so they know that we sent you to them. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. The Montreal Canadiens fire their coach and hire a new one. Both kind of questionable moves. I don't know. For me personally, I don't know why, when you're that low in the standings and you're halfway through the season, just ride it out. And then if you are going to fire your coach and hire a new one, and you give him you're just hired for the rest of the season mantra and title, that doesn't bode well either. I don't get any of this, and including the hire itself. Montreal goes out and hires Matin St. the famous Ranger and famous Tampa Bay Lightning. Great guy. Was a favorite player of mine to watch play. Never coached a lick in the NHL. Not to say that, he doesn't know hockey. Clearly he knows hockey, but sometimes it doesn't always translate into coaching hockey. Yeah. Was this a surprise hire for you?
Absolutely. I'm in the same boat as you. One of my favorite players growing up, obviously played for the Lightning. And so when I read it, I had to do a double take. I was like, wait, Marty St. Louis, the player?
Is there a different St. Louis?
That's why I did a double take. And
right,
having time to think about this, I would say there really is no logical reasoning other than maybe he impressed in a meeting with Jeff Corton, where really the only connection you have with those two is that they're both at one point were associated with the New York Rangers. So maybe they got to know each other at one point during Gorton's tenure with the Rangers. Yeah. St. Louis has always been known as a smart player, but at the same time, that, like you said, it doesn't always translate into behind the bench. And
yeah, I guess what I just don't get is why, if this is like your guy, why not sign him to a contract? Sign him to a multi-year contract.
Yeah.
But you're basically telling him, like, I guess we have to see how this pans out. If he just coaches the rest of the year and then next year they hire a brand new coach, what was the point in firing your initial coach anyway and bringing in a new coach for 3 months? What is the point in doing that? I know if the guy's already lost the locker room, he's lost the locker room. Nothing is going to turn around for this season for the Canadiens in St. Louis for the remainder of this season. So just suck the rest of the year, have the best odds to get the number one pick, fire the coach then, and then hire who you want to a multi-year deal. I don't get this. I never understand why teams at the bottom of the standings fire coaches at I'd say right now from the halfway point on. No point to me.
It's a strange situation, given also that you're firing a coach who also took your team to the Stanley Cup final last year.
A year ago.
Yeah. So, and yeah, like you said, if this is your guy, sign him to a long-term contract. But at the same time, what do you expect to see from St. Louis in 3 months? It's going to take him at least a month to get to know the guys on this team. It's going to take probably 2 for them to learn whatever system or to get used to whatever system that he wants to instill. And then by the time you kind of see the fruits of the labor, possibly you're going to have
Season's
maybe a
over.
month. Yeah, the season's over. I don't know if maybe this is just a test run to see how just everybody in the organization gels together. Obviously, I don't know. It's just a very strange situation. At the same
Mm.
time, if I was St. Louis, I wouldn't pass this up because he's from the area. He grew up a huge Canadiens fan. So it's a very strange situation. If I was a Canadiens fan, I would be slightly upset
Well, yeah. I
about
mean,
this
and all
situation.
that stuff that you're saying, like all these time frames. This is a coach who's never coached before that has to
Yeah,
navigate that. That's crazy. Like this is a guy who's learning his way. If he wants to get into coaching, that's fine.
yeah,
And I'm rooting for him. I hope he can be a good coach. But for him to never have coached an NHL game in his life and then to go tell him go coach the worst team in the league for the remainder of the season, and if you don't do well, there's no guarantee that we're gonna bring you back. Or even if you do well, there's no guarantee we're gonna bring you back.
yeah.
It makes zero sense to me. Zero. So I wish him well. It's a tall order, but man, that's have fun. Have fun with that because I'm glad it's not me. I put up on Twitter jokingly, like, hey, moves like this are why I hold out hope that I will someday be a NHL GM. I have no experience, but I love it. So my resume is up on Indeed if you want to pull from it. But I will not apply for the Chicago Blackhawks. I can tell you that. Not doing that one. Staying
Yeah.
away from that. I don't know, man. So, and again, when it comes to the power rankings, does this do anything? Maybe sometimes, I get it. And for the people that are saying like, well, they have to make a move. He lost the team and lost the locker room, and maybe this will just jumpstart them like it did in Vancouver.
Yeah.
I get it. I get that side of it, but I think how poorly Montreal is playing, I just don't think there's any hope for this season. Just
I
call the season a dud and move on.
I also think just from St. Louis' point of view, if I were him, if I was in his place, I think you're putting yourself in almost an unwinnable situation, starting your very, very fresh coaching career
Right?
in the biggest hockey market in the league.
Yeah.
Um, I,
Rough.
I just don't.
Rough.
I hate to be overcritical, but I don't know what the thought process was
I
there.
don't know. I don't know. It maybe is the New York connection. I didn't even really think about that until you just said it. So it could be that. So, all right, everybody, that's going to wrap it up for today. We should be back next week with a fresh batch of power rankings. So tune in on the Thursday edition of Locked On NHL. So that's going to do it for this week. He's Mr. Adam Denker from Locked On Lightning. I'm Chris Maselli from Locked On Avalanche, and thank you for listening to the Thursday edition of Locked On NHL. We'll see you guys next week.